Hello, ladies and gentlemen. And welcome to another scene set in a Vampire of a Requiem for London. And today's Requiem, or should I say tonight's, is David Morris's. A young gangrel who's recently flown in from Kansas, being given very explicit instructions from his sire to seek out the Crone of London. For what purpose, it's not immediately clear. Maybe something as mundane as to reinforce them against Lancea posturing. Maybe it's to finally let him off the leash and see what he can do on his own. Maybe it is something more esoteric. The Crone do love their esoterica. David, it's been a very long journey for you. The plane ride was less than accommodating. You had to mind the open windows. Staying awake was absolutely exhausting. Being who you are, you did it, but it was exhausting. And it has not prevented the blood from burning itself away to fuel your animation. Worse still, you had to put on the blush of life at the airport to make it through security checks and give a fingerprint scan. Border control is very, very unpalatable these days, particularly to kindred kind. And you did not have the luxury that many wealthier or more influential kindred do of having a private flight to skip all the checks. No. You had to take public, like many other common kindred. And you can see why few do now. But you are finally here. You land in Gatwick Airport, West Sussex, in Crawley. It's a short drive off of London, and it is on the south side, so you will have to travel across the rest of London to reach the Crone. You're not entirely sure where they are, but perhaps they will find you. You presume your sire has told them that you will be coming. But once you find your way out of Gatwick Airport, you have several options available to you. You can walk. It'll probably be your whole night. Being a gangrel, I mean, all you have to do is find a patch of grass. You can go to sleep. You can split the journey up, or you can catch a cab or something, or just hijack a vehicle if you're feeling bold. There's also a lot of people around, and you become very aware that very quickly that you're quite hungry. You can hear their heartbeats, and you can hear their heartbeats quite clearly. It's almost a bit too loud. There's too many of them. It gives you a bit of a headache. So what do you want to do?
feeling pretty hungry, and it feels like that's probably the best problem to deal with first, so as to keep things from getting too keep himself from getting too worked up. He's going to walk up to a stranger and say, "Well, howdy. Sorry to bother you. I'm David Morris. I'm kind of, in case you couldn't tell by the accent, I'm a little new to the area. I was wondering if you could give me some directions."
Yeah, you catch one of the people who's gotten off a recent flight like yourself, and they say, yeah, where you looking to go to? Appears to be like a man of average build, Caucasian, mid-30s, um, wearing casual office attire, probably got off some business flight.
Look, I just got off a long flight, just looking for somewhere to bed down for the night. I don't know if you have any suggestions for that or anything.
Let's see. He gets out his phone real quick. Yeah, I normally stop by at the Premier Inn. It's near the North Terminal drop-off. There's a couple of them actually. There's one just outside the airport as well. There's also a travel lodge just north of the car park, and it's the Oaks Lodge on the west side as well. So really, it's down to you, but I'd recommend the Premier Inn. Just on London Road. It's pretty good if you're just looking to stay the night. If you want to book something more permanent, I'd probably recommend moving further into Meath Green. There's a couple of good hotels around there. He'll just point it out on your phone or on his phone rather. Gives you some basic directions.
Alright, appreciate it. While I got you, I don't suppose you might get a drink or somewhere to unwind as well.
Well, pardon?
While I got you here, is there someplace I could catch a drink? Some place to kind of chill out, wind down?
There's a couple of cafes in the duty-free area. There's a couple of restaurants just outside as well. I can show you if you want. It's just a short walk. I'm going to be walking out that way anyway.
Yeah. Don't if you don't mind, that'd be great.
Okay. So he starts walking through the terminal. He walks on through. You both make it through just fine. And he takes you to a bar. Unfortunately, the place is quite busy, and it's not particularly easy to catch him alone here. It's one of the busier airports in the country, and he's kind of taking you to a place that's just kind of along the sort of main, just down the main set of corridors and the like. but you have his attention. But he just ends up walking just to kind of near the entrance where there is a bar. There's actually a couple of them.
Mm.
Yeah, a couple just down here if you get a drink. They're pretty good. Usually get one before I hop on my flight.
It's fair. Not a fan of flying, or just like to have one.
Well, pardon?
He'll say, "Yeah, I mean that's fair. You're not a fan of flying, or you just like to have one in your system before you go up."
I'm just like having a bit of it in my system, you know.
Oh, sorry.
I normally have some pretty long flights, so you know I like to have something before I go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to catch a drink now? May as well.
Yeah, I'm on board.
Your blush of life is still active, so you
I'll
would
pay
be
for
able...
you.
Your blush of life is still active, so you would still be able to stomach a drink for at least a little while. Blush of life in this system does allow you to actually drink and eat food as if you are human. Allows you to keep it down until it ends, which is about a scene, so a few hours. A couple hours. But yeah, you would catch a drink of a guy. And you'll just say, "Oh, my name's Henry, by the way."
Well, nice to meet you, Henry. Like I said earlier, I'm David Morris.
Yeah, I caught your name earlier. So, forgive me for being presumptuous, but I assume you just got the flight off from. You just got a flight from the States, I assume.
Yeah. That is the case. From Kansas originally, little southern state down in the U.S.
Oh yeah, I can't say I've visited myself, but I've heard it's a nice place.
It's all right. Not a lot to do. Mostly flat.
Yeah, he doesn't sound particularly genuine when he says it sounds like a nice place. It sounds like he's being polite more so than anything else. Poor Kansas.
Sorry, my dog is upset with people, but he does not see people.
The dog is furious that Kansas has been disrespected in this way. It demands vengeance.
Blood for Kansas.
Blood for Kansas. Justice for the flyover states. But yeah, you catch a drink of the guy. There's a few empty tables. It's you notice actually that you when you kind of go to check the time, you like look at your phone or your watch. You notice it's actually quite early in the evening. It's only like 5:30. It's winter, but there's no real sense of grogginess or anything like that. It's not like it's just gotten dark. You've been awake for quite some time in this area. For at least a good couple of hours, actually. But you find a spare table, kind of more distant from everybody else, or you find a sort of bar area, part of a bar that's just a bit far removed from everybody else. And you can attempt to feed off of him here once you get your drinks. You're far enough removed from people that you think you could probably sneak it in without too much of a fuss. If you're looking to make it quick, at least. If it was extended, some people might get leery, but if it's quick, you know you shouldn't have a problem. You're a
Okay.
professional, Kindred. You seem to have you seem to have the timing for these things down at this point in your own life. That sort of amateurish, I don't know how to feed and when and where to do it has kind of passed you by at this point.
Gotcha. Yeah. If I can kind of get the timing down right, uh, he'll make a go for it. It's not going to be like it's mostly just I can hear people's blood, so I need to get that sorted out. So just as much as I need to get going, and then be on my way.
Something to note is it is natural for Kindred to hear the heartbeats and the minutiae of human bodily function, or in
Oh,
that aspect. You can sense the heartbeats of anything up to 10 yards per blood potency. You only have the one blood potency, so it's every 10 years. So you can sense the breathing and the heartbeats, and to some vague extent, even sort of the minute movements of the blood, the sort of blood flow of humans around you up to 10 yards. You can sense every living thing around you.
it's just like as it is right now. It's almost overwhelming.
Yeah, you can
Just
tell
because
your
I'm so.
beast is getting it wants you to feed and wants you to do it now. It's getting tense and it's getting impatient. The flight was long and you haven't fed. It wants its due.
So yeah, I'll go in for a little quick blood grabbing. I'm not
Okay.
exactly sure what this would be. Maybe stealth, like a stealth-based one, but
Yeah, make me a couple rolls. One of these will be more important. Well, actually, both of these are fairly important. It would probably be a yeah Dex stealth just to make it quick, just to nab a blood point. Um, once of once you bite into them, it won't be an issue. At least not for the victim. They'll misremember the feeding and will be quite pliable to you. They'll be very amenable to you. But it's everybody else around you who you don't really want to spot it or don't want them to misinterpret it as something else. Um, when you take a blood, so yeah, Dex stealth for the feed, and then when you taste for blood, roll me a quick resolve plus composure with a -2 dice penalty. This is a frenzy check. You are tasting blood, and the beast wants all of it.
uh, remind 10 to 10. Like, do I reroll tens in this system?
Yeah. When you get a 10, you roll another dice. Um, it's basically 8, 9, and 10 are the success dice. You only need a single success. Um, Successes aren't counted in this system unless there is a power that specifically requires it. If it's an extended roll, or if you get an exceptional success, which is 5 successes or more, then those successes count for something else. But usually, a single success is enough to succeed at anything.
Gotcha.
Um,
I did get two
so
since I
yeah,
got
you
the
get
110 and then.
yeah, that's a very you get 3 ones at a time. Ones don't take away. It's just so they don't do anything. So yeah, you succeed. Um, Now just make me a resolve. Did you get the resolve plus composure check off?
Not yet.
No, you just yeah, resolve plus composure. It's -2 dice. You can spend willpower, but willpower normally adds 3 dice to a roll. For frenzy checks, it doesn't. What it does is that it holds off a frenzy for a turn. And then when those turns are up, dependent on how much willpower you spend. So if you spent 2 willpower, you'd hold off a frenzy for 2 turns. Then you would roll with an additional dice for each willpower you spent.
Yeah, I think I'll spend 1 willpower to hold it off for a turn, and then
Okay.
I'll do the roll.
It will give you an opportunity to at least get out of there.
Okay, yeah. So I'll do that.
It's you
If they'll-
will visually fight with
my God.
frenzy because you're feeding. It won't be too obvious. But yeah, so you're only taking a -1 dice penalty because the willpower does add a dice. It's resolve plus composure. Okay, you make it.
Hey,
So as soon as the beast takes the blood, it's almost like it leaps out of your throat and urges you to devour it all. You can almost hear its voice in your head. But you grapple with it, you force it down, but it's rattled the cage, and you gain the tempted condition. The tempted condition, be sure to mark it, list your conditions somewhere on your character sheet or somewhere on a separate post, because they're important. The tempted condition, you came close to losing control. Your beast came at you and you refused to call, but now the beast remains close to the surface. You get a -1 dice penalties to any further rolls to resist frenzy. Until you shed this condition, each time you resist frenzy, the penalty increases by 1. So you'll start with tempted -1, then if you resist frenzy again, you'll get tempted -2, and so on and so forth. The resolution to this is to kill, to frenzy, or to have a meaningful connection with your touchstone. So you resist a frenzy. You feed off a guy within a few seconds. It's pretty quick, it's fairly swift. It's a bit messy because your beast came at you, but you make sure to lick the wound clean. Not much evidence there. Man looks kind of stunned and looks a bit dazed. You could probably just leave him here if you're quick. Or you could just kind of jog his shoulder and ask if he's okay.
no, I got what I needed. So David, like as he stays, just gets up and heads on out.
Yeah, take the drink, leave him with the bill. He comes out of it as you kind of approach the exit. It only takes him a few seconds. He kind of looks around, but by the time he thinks he may have seen you, you're already around the corner. Nobody really seems to have noticed anything, and you don't think you're being followed. So, considering you're in an airport, you can chalk that up as a victory. And while your beast is still rattling the cage, you are no longer hungry. At least not as much as you were. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, you're fine. I was just saying, huzzah.
Huzzah. Huzzah indeed. Now you have a different task in front of you. You make it out of the airport. It's a very cold night. It's chilly. And there's a light drizzle coming down. British weather is indeed miserable. It's quite cloudy. There's a few people coming out of, heading in and out of the terminal. And there are a few taxis parked by. You could also attempt to run out a car or just steal one.
Let's see. I got resources 1, so I think I'd be able to get like a taxi.
Yeah. Even if you had resources 0, you'd still be able to get yourself a taxi.
Okay. Yeah, I'll probably just do that because it seems like the better option, and David's not fully indoctrinated into the Crone ways yet, I would think. The circle ways.
And you catch a cab. Taxi driver. It's quite amiable, but also quite quiet. Get in the back. And where do you ask to go? London is a big place. It isn't too long of a drive. They're quite happy to take you to London. The real question is where.
You said, like, my sire told me that the circle members were, like, in the north of London.
In the north. So places like Enfield, Ealing, Waltham Forest. That sort of thing. Those sorts of boroughs. Never want to be Barnet.
I think I'm gonna go with Waltham Forest because that sounds vaguely like the right direction to go in.
Okay. You're going to rack up quite a bill because that's on the opposite side of London. But yeah, you're going to be paying quite a lot. And London traffic is not nice. Fortunately, London taxi drivers are very good at what they do. They know all of the roads. They know all of optimal ways to go down. They know when to listen to their sat nav. They know when to entirely ignore it. The taxi business is quite protectionist in London and somewhat elitist from a certain perspective. And it's faster than regular drivers. So you begin driving. You find your way within Waltham Forest within a few hours. Still takes about 2.5 hours, even with the skill of a taxi man. It's a long drive. There are quite a lot of places to be let off within Waltham Forest. And there are a few locations of note. We'll say you've probably heard of this one place. It's it's the William Morris Gallery in Lloyd Park. Not lying, that's an actual place.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. It's nothing. It's nothing special for a gallery. It's hardly the British Museum, but it's something. And you drop yourself off there. You pay a pretty hefty bill for the taxi man, who is quite expectant.
Yeah.
You now find yourself in Lloyd's Park. As you've travelled through Waltham Forest, your beast, and by extension yourself, have felt a bit uneasy. You know when you're travelling through a kindred's feeding grounds. At least when the kindred wants to make it public. And your beast sensed this a couple of times as you went throughout Waltham Forest. As you went throughout all of London, in fact. When you went throughout the inner city, it was particularly prominent. But on the outer city, it's a bit less so, a bit more sparse. But yeah, you can start making your way through Lloyd Park, and you kind of get the same sense of exclusion, of isolation. You feel like you're on somebody else's turf here. You can smell the markings of blood, although you can't see them. And you can see the signs. Everybody here, a few people that do go down here, have that very ever so slight pale tinge to them. Athletes and runners mainly. Seems like whoever feeds here has a thing for athletes and the fit, the healthy. Seems like a wise feeding preference. You're in a
Just kind of
park.
wondering more about. Sorry, what?
You're in a park. You do have animalism if you want to use it.
Yeah, that seems good.
So you can summon a couple of animals to you. Mainly birds. A couple of tawny owls, maybe.
Do you happen to know, like, is there a role for that? Do you know off the top of your head?
Yes. So to summon and communicate with animals within your vicinity, let me find it. You will roll manipulation plus animal ken plus animalism. There is no cost to this power.
Perfect.
Okay. Your beast emits a low growl that makes its way through your gut, up through your chest, and finally out of your mouth. And in the dead silence of the night, as you have begun to segregate yourself from the mortal crowd, or, well, the mortals of the park, a small, a very small, modest looking owl, you think again, maybe a tawny owl, begins flying on down for one of the far off trees. And it simply says, "Hello, you called."
Yeah, yeah. I take it you are familiar with this area?
Yes, it looks. It tilts its head ever so slightly at you. You look unfamiliar.
Yeah, I'm from a little ways out of town. I'm trying to get my head sorted. Would you happen to know if there are any other people like me around?
Yes, you are trespassing.
Well, I'm terribly sorry about that. I don't know whose domain this is, but if you could point me in their direction, well, then to apologize.
Oh, they are near. They are here almost every night. If you wish, I can go find them for you.
Please, that would be lovely.
It tilts its head at you as if it's received an order or obey. It looks somewhat. It's a combination of affirmative, confused, and slightly amused. Owls are known to be a bit wily. And actually, if you'd like to roll me wits occult, actually intelligence occult, if you have it. You do have occult.
You said intelligence occult?
Yeah, intelligence occult. Ooh. Roll that 10 again. Okay. You remember way back in Kansas, now for some reason the local kindred population considered the presence of owls to be a bad omen. Particularly among the elders. It got so severe once that one of your clanmates was publicly disgraced for bringing their owl familiar into Elysium. Quite viciously so, very disproportionately. They were exiled from Elysium and almost from the domain. But eventually, the owl returns, hovering above a young-looking man in rather eccentric attire. A thick fur coat and scrawny trousers. They look quite out of place compared to most people. Well built, but quite small. With short black hair, but shaved off at the sides, and short goatee. He approaches you. When you look at him, you sense his predatory aura, and you recognize him as a kindred immediately.
Dave will give a polite wave towards him.
And what lost little lamb finds itself on my feeding grounds this evening?
I wouldn't really call myself a lamb, but sure, whatever. My name's David. David Morris.
Clan Gangrel. A distant cousin, then. You are unfamiliar. What brings you to the domains of Crone?
My sire sent me to London to find y'all, see how I can assist, and learn more of our ways.
Hmm. If that is the case, I have not been told, but then I'm rarely told many things. I can take you to our elders. They will likely know what to do with you.
Sounds great. Sounds most hopeful.
Good. It'll be a long walk, but I don't doubt you will not tire. He issues a rather husky bark to the air. It's quite loud. Echoes across the park. The owl you sent to find him um, begins to fly more highly above him, and a couple dozen birds begin to gather around him. A few owls, mainly crows and magpies. And after issuing some nondescript order, the birds scatter. Then he begins to change. He morphs into a black dog. He barks at you. And starts walking north towards Epping Forest. As you follow him, it takes you about another hour to reach where you're going, and you make your way somewhat far into the forest before it becomes apparent just how far you are into Crone territory. Strange-looking markings line the trees, and charms begin to hang off the branches. A strange energy fills the air, and you find yourself with a mild sort of connection to the earth, almost as if you had roots reaching deep down into the soil. Eventually, as the air thickens, you make your way into a clearing. And there is a tall woman with long flowing black hair present. She stands before an altar. The altar is that of two monarchs, one a queen, one a king. The queen surrounded by nature, wildlife. A small bird perches on her shoulder. She is in long white robes not too dissimilar from a Roman toga. The throne she sits upon is made largely of wood that continues to gnarl and grow and reach out. On the other side, there is a man, large, stocky, looks to be armored in some sort of breastplate. And unlike the altar of the Queen, which is almost marble white, his is obsidian black. He's surrounded by death, although the one that bows before him in the altar appears to be a man, thin and frail, but still alive. The king wields something akin to a short sword, a gladius from the looks of it. Their throne is stony, but isn't made of just stone. It is adorned with many valuable minerals, ruby, diamond, sapphire, opal. Just about every sort of jewel you could imagine rests upon the sculpture of this king, who is surrounded by death. But the way the altar is fashioned it appears almost cyclical. As in one half feeds into the other. It is not particularly one is good, one is bad. It's more two halves of a whole. You can make me an intelligence academic check to sort of put the pieces together. The base of the altar has Roman Latin inscriptions written into it.
Nope.
No, it's familiar, but yeah, you can't really. It's clearly been romanticized a little bit. This is clearly a Crone construction. It's not exactly historical. It's very much something that's been built to accommodate the faith of the Crone, as opposed to whatever faith once believed in these entities. But you are certain they are gods that once belonged to a mortal belief. Just not sure which ones. But the man in the coat, he bows before the woman, who turns to face you. Oh God. And he says, "Priestess, I bring to you a new acolyte from across the ocean. He claims to be called David Morris. It says his sire sent him here to learn more of our ways." The woman, David Morris is quite a broad man, isn't he? He's fairly...
Yeah.
Yeah, he's fairly... This woman is actually quite Amazonian in height. She rivals you in height, not necessarily in muscle mass, although she does look quite fit and strong. Her clothing is quite simple. Black robes, not too dissimilar from the white robes seen in the altar of the Queen. says, yes. I was informed you would be arriving. Thank you for delivering him, Laurentius. My apologies for keeping you from your domain and your charges. But you will be looked kindly upon for this. Stand. He stands. And says, blessings upon you, but if you would return to your duties. Of course. He briefly morphs into a crow and flies away. Before he does, he gives you a single nod and says, you know where to find me if you wish to speak with me again. And yes, flies away. My, Mr. Morris. She has there's a certain, when you look upon her, you do recognize her as kindred, but there's a certain otherness to her. Her skin is quite pale, has a very pale sheen to it. And there's a certain offness to her predatory aura. It towers, kind of like her. And your beast feels very uneasy in this space, more so than when it was passing through the feeding grounds of other kindred. There it was more just a sort of vague sensation. Here, your beast feels extremely tense, as if it were ready to flee at a moment's notice. As if it just needed a push in that direction for it to just scatter into the wind. What have you stumbled into, Mr. Morris? Did your sire even inform you as to why you are here?
All he told me was to help bolster the ranks and learn more about us, what we do, how we do things.
Yes, Elizabeth. The way she says it comes with a sort of mixed tone. I remember her. I was all a member of the flock before. Well, that is ancient history, but yes. I used to be good friends of your sire. She has been good to us. I suppose in return, the least I could do is welcome you. Tell me, what sort of faith do they practice in Kansas? Elizabeth, while devoted to the circle, was always known to be a bit fickle. And again, there's a certain severity she says when she says fickle. Sounds very biting, scathing.
Well, I found myself falling in with the people of the land.
I see. The natives?
Yep.
Hmm. We take a more dualistic approach here. I suppose you could say we strive towards a balance in all things. Much within ourselves as without ourselves. The balance of life and death between us. The bounties of civilization and the well places in which you currently have the privilege of residing in. Here we honor the two that most exemplify this balance, this duology of civilization and savagery, and the boundaries that we find ourselves between. And the ones that made us who we are, the ones whose blood flows through us. Dispata and Proserpina. You recognize those names now. Kind of adds up. They're the Romanizations of the Greek gods, Hades and Persephone. The king and queen of the underworld, respectively. And Persephone in legends in particular is known to she spends half her time in the underworld and half her time in the living world, which fits the style of the Crone quite neatly now that you think about it. This is the power that flows through us, the power that we give to those who are faithful. There are those in this city that disagree. They are mistaken. Although various kindred practice various bastardization of our sorceries, we are the oldest, we are the first. And we are the most powerful. As she gestures, and as she does, it's almost as if the whole forest moves with her gesture. The trunks of the trees twist, the branches move, they gnaw, almost like the claws of your clan. It's almost as if they are giant dryads alive, moving with her. But it is just a gesture. Here we are strong and we are safe from the constant persecution and tyranny of the Lancashire. But recent years have seen a shift for us and them. Lancashire we once fought tamed my modern conveniences and internal schisms are once again attempting to extinguish us from our rightful place in this city. While you are welcome within Crone territory, I would urge you caution. The Lancair, for whatever reason, have found themselves particularly violent and fervent these nights. So much so that conflicts between us and them along the borders of our domains are not uncommon. I would urge you to remain away from Enfield. Unless you wish to see the lash of a Lancair at your throat. Of course, if you wish to earn your keep among us, volunteering to defend what is ours would not be an unwelcome decision.
I do find my natural talents tend to lend myself to that matter, so I would not be opposed to assisting in defending what's ours.
Yes, I find your skill set is clear and apparent, but your purpose here not. Elizabeth told us very little of why you are here, of why she sent you here. I considered perhaps maybe you would have answers. Yet you do not.
Elizabeth never seemed like one to explain too much.
I see. Then she is growing, at least. But your purpose may yet be revealed. I wish to see what place you will have here. And what perhaps the gods have in store for you.
I'm looking forward to seeing that myself. Just tell me how I can assist. Be more than happy to earn my keep around here.
Hmm. She gauges you, and she stares at you. It's a very statuesque stare. It's almost as if her body just kind of goes rigid for a few seconds. As you said, you are strong. I think we can put that to use. The Crone has many enemies. These nights more so than ever. The peace the Invictus have put in place is a convenient lie. Like many things, so-called establishments and their maquette shadow monarchs. But it is a lie people believe. And that has given it some credence, ironically. I would have you go make yourself known to the rest of the circle first. You have made yourself known to me in Waltham, but the Crone... We are well spread out across London. We possess many lands in Waltham, Hackney, Redbridge, Havering, Barking. They are lands we know well, and I would wish to see that if you are to be our defender, you are to earn your keep through the shedding of blood, that you would know where to shed it, and that you would know where to look. I will put you in contact with several guides who will familiarize you with our domains. Then we will set you the tests to determine your worth among us.
David, well, very well, however, to do.
Now pay tribute. I don't expect you to stand before an altar of a god without showing some proper respect.
He'll nod. And he'll walk up to the altar and try to do like an occult roll to see what would be a proper. So I'm feeling like blood would be the proper thing, but like I don't know in character.
You know, just by being a member of the circle, you know that blood is a common theme across many faiths of the circle, being that the ones who run them are kindred. But that it is also used. In fact, it is the source of power for Kruak ritual. To give of your own blood may not only be an appropriate ritual, but may also allow the elder that stands before you the power to perhaps reciprocate such tribute with a gift from the gods themselves. Something more meager, perhaps, would not suffice.
Is there like a knife or something on the altar?
I see you possess more common sense than most newcomers I've introduced so far. Yes, she pulls out a knife from underneath her robes. It is very ceremonial. It is not something that is very good for combat, you would imagine. It's not very practical. Rather, it is something more ritualistic and something used perhaps for tribute or simply ending lives as opposed to being engaged in anything practical of the sort. Real combat, real violence. You cut open the palm of your hand and begin to shed blood before the altar. And as you do, you begin to hear Latin chanting from your elder. It seems to carry itself throughout the forest, throughout the woods. It seems to the sound seems to circle the air. And she's going to make a roll. Okay. Okay, I'm actually just going to double check what the what the threshold is of what she's actually doing, because she rolled extremely well on that. Don't worry, it's all good. Nothing bad happening to you yet.
It's about time.
So as the sound circles the air, and your blood begins to flow down onto the altar, or down before the altar, there is a tribute bowl that it flows into. As it flows into the tribute bowl, it begins to swirl, begins to form something of a... begins to stir on its own. Rotted leaves begin to fall off the tree branch and land therein. Begin to melt into the swirling bowl. They fragment and dissolve. And she her eyes go wide as she looks at you in the bowl. And then they dilate again. The blood stops swirling. It soon becomes inert as it has left your system. Whatever garnered the priestess's attention ends. She lets a very small flicker of a smile out before a very small flicker of a smile just kind of appears on her face while she looks back at you. She simply says, "Thank you. My name is Mona. I am the High Priestess of the Serenites of the Circle here." And again, funny that she mentions Serenites. Ceres is the mother of Proserpina, which I guess would make her, from in a Crone context, she could be considered the Crone. You have an interesting future ahead of you.
Interesting can mean a lot of things. I
Yes.
guess we'll have to see good or bad.
I hear the Chinese say it is a curse, although yours is illustrious, paved in blood. Blood that will serve the Crone well. One that will end a false doom. And end the petty conflicts of Lancare upon us.
We'll not say. Hope I can, hope your vision is correct. Hope I can live up to it.
Yes, perhaps it is less a prophecy, more of an expectation. A heavy burden for one so young. To be considered one that would end a Cold War. But one it appears you have been chosen for.
See much point in complaining about the burden. It'll happen one way or another, I'm sure. Might as well just lock up and deal with it.
Yes, that is the attitude of a hero that I expect to see. The challenge exists to be met. And to be conquered, not to be fretted over. You already surpassed my expectations. I am pleased with you. Tell me, do you have anywhere to stay? Or did your sire not even give you that privilege?
She set me up with a small apartment in the city, but
Dangerous.
yeah,
The
not sure.
Invictus. Oh, sorry.
He'll say, I'm not sure if it'll be too fitting for me.
No, it appears your sire has not kept herself up to speed. The landscape has changed. She places you in danger by allowing you to reside within the inner city. The Invictus maintain a strong hegemony there. Almost all covenants outside of the Invictus control barely a single portion of the inner city. A fragment, a fraction. We have our own, but it is not much. I would recommend you stay here in Waltham for now. Allow yourself to become familiarized with Crone domains before heading to Westminster. There is a domain there. There is another one in Chelsea and Kensington. One of our own. She pauses a bit uncharacteristically. One of our own. is one of the keepers there. They control a mandragora garden in the Kensington Rooftop Gardens. If you wish to meet other kindred, I would recommend starting there.
He'll nod and say, that sounds like a mighty fine suggestion to me.
And one last thing. Always assume you are being watched in this city. It is not just the Invictus that control it. It is a Maquette dynasty. And they play it for tricks that all Maquette do. Hiding and watching. And unraveling all there is to know about you. By the time you spent a night in London, there likely won't be a secret that you can keep from them. So be careful who you talk to. Be careful what you share, and more importantly, be careful of what you decide to learn. You will not be able to keep it from them for long. Not if they will it. Do not give them a reason to.
He'll nod.
But I believe I have preached at you enough for one night. Come, let me show you out. So you can make your way home. She begins walking, sorry?
No, go ahead.
Okay, she begins walking away from the altar and back from the direction you've come from. And then, as you begin to walk through, after a few minutes, it becomes apparent that if she wasn't leading you out of here, you would be lost. None of the landmarks, none of the trees or the foliage appear to be in the position they were in before. You would have to rely on the night sky to find your way out of here. Which you probably could, to be fair. You are a capable survivalist. But this place would not make it easy for you. Eventually, you reach the periphery, you reach the open area. The public space, what's known as the sort of public area of the Epping Forest, within Waltham. The area you were actually in led you somewhat outside of London. We perform services bi-weekly. I encourage you to attend. We are a communal people, and assistance in the performance of ceremony, both real and imagined, is always appreciated and respected. And just because you are not the one casting said ceremony does not mean it cannot benefit you. But that is all I have left to say. Evening,
Appreciate
Miss.
the
Oh, we keep talking at the same time. Sorry.
sorry. We'll say I appreciate the guidance and the patronage.
She gives you a slow nod. Oh, the way she moves appears very deliberate as she begins to walk away. It's almost as if no real movement or gesture is wasted. And she doesn't have the same human gestures that are familiar to you, the ones that you're still accustomed to. She walks away into the forest again and quickly disappears amidst the trees, leaving you alone to make your way home. Whether that's in Waltham or any inner city is for you to decide, but I think this would be a good place to end the scene. Thank you, player, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. We'll see you all next time. Goodbye.